I'm going to talk about the how to save sustainable, inclusive, and resilient society. And to make it clearer, we will focus on the water-related disaster. This is the content of our presentation. We have 5 sections, and there are types of water-related disaster, CLMV and Japan case studies, relation to SLOM, prevention and solution, and then our conclusion. First of all, I will tell you about the types of water-related disaster that we've seen in our CLMV and Japan. In Singapore, they have drought and sea level rise. In Cambodia and Vietnam, we both have flood and drought. In Japan, there were flood and tsunami, and in Laos, there was flood and infrastructure. And the first case study is our country, Vietnam. In Vietnam, each year, flood takes the life of 466 people. It damages over 1.5 billion USD, and equivalent to 1.5% of GDP. The flood is becoming more and more complicated, and intensity is stronger, and it becomes the big problem of the time. This is some pictures from the flood in Central Vietnam in December 2018. It caused 6 deaths and 2 missing. The floodwaters submerged more than 23,000 houses, and more than 60,000 poultry died and swept away.
And for case study number 2 is in Cambodia. First of all, I would like to how many types of flood in Cambodia. There are 2 types. They have a flood type which is occurred during the monsoon season after the heavy rain. So this type of flood is very quick. It occurs during the upper part of Cambodia, and the prolonged flood is much slower, but it stays longer. So it's caused by the overflow of the Mekong River. So the Mekong River is down from the left part. So it might occur during the Kanda province of Phnom Chang, which is next to Phnom Penh city. And this is the example of the flood that occurring in 2011. So around 80 out of 20 provinces were affected, which is about 350,000 households were affected, which is equal to 1.5 million people. And 250 people died and 23 people are injured. Moreover, in 2013, they also had a prolonged flood, which is it comes lower, but it will stay longer in that affected area. So 20 out of 24 provinces are affected. About 370,000 households are affected, but around 31,000 are evacuated to the safe place.
Okay, I would like to introduce about case study of Laos. It is the subject of report of Laos. Fast flooding in part of northern Laos over the last few days has affected Laos by 100 people, or 125 families in Udon Thai province. Vientiane Thai hosting organized sources says that flooding in 3 villages in Bang district in Udon Thai province on 17 August 2019. The capital Vientiane was hit by some modern flooding on 20 August. Roads were blocked and traffic disrupted. According to Laos news agency, Vientiane recorded 141 mm of rain in 24 hours to 21 August. Okay, next is some detail. Flooding has also affected Part 1 Nan district and Luang Prabang province in recent days. This is the second phase of flooding in the district in the last few weeks. On 29 July, and the Nan River blocked its bank affected around 2,000 people, or 400 families. Meanwhile, 6 people are still missing after flood in Vientiane Sai, also Vientiane Sai, Hoa Phan province. On 03 August, the flooding also damaged homes caught and restocked alongside because 41 mm of rain in 24 hours to 03 August, and something also in Mopan province because 101 mm of rain the following day.
So I will talk about the case study in Japan, and I will show you two examples. The first one is tsunami. And there are a lot of earthquakes in Japan, and as you know, in 2011, a huge earthquake called Great East Japan Earthquake occurred in Tohoku area, and also and then 19,630 people were killed, and also about 90% of them died by tsunami. And there is another problem. Look at this picture and the color of the wave. Actually, this wave is black color, and this tsunami is called black tsunami. It has sludge, oil, and heavy metal, and if people absorb these waves, they may get pneumonia and concussion. So there are many people who are suffering from this problem even now. And second example is a flood, and we are sometimes affected by the flood damage. And in 1982, there was a huge flood in Nagasaki Prefecture, and the number of the dead and missing people are 299, and 39,755 houses were damaged by this flood.
However, in Singapore, we take a different perspective into water-related disaster, and our disaster is actually, instead of excess water, it is what if there's no water at all. Because in our country, there's no natural resources like stream or waterfall. So what happened is that it all started when we got kicked out by Singapore. We got kicked out by Malaysia. We're the only country that actually got the accidental independence. And that ever since then, Malaysia has always used water as a threat whenever there's a dispute, if they don't get what they want. So it is a crisis that is actually quite urgent back then for survival, and that the main rivers like Singapore River itself, it was very polluted, that it was unsafe, and that they always had to ration. The second problem is actually drought. It was not a common thing back then, up until today when global warming actually started to come into play. Drought becomes like almost a constant thing in Singapore, where there's a season where you see totally all brown fields and brown trees. And that, ironically, the water source that we got from, which is in Malaysia, for our survival pipe, which is part of our fault there, they also get affected. So imagine within your country, the water reservoirs that you have is drying up, and your emergency resource, which is in Malaysia, is also facing the same problem because of the weather climate in the area.
What will happen to slum during such disaster? If the water disaster is happening in the slum, or probably all the slum disappear by then. So that our group's idea is that making some committee for protecting from water disaster in slum. We introduce countermeasures against water disaster in each country.
Next is how to prevent and solve water disaster by government in each country. I show you two types structures for prevent water disaster in Japan. First, look at picture. This is junior high school in Saga, near to Enden River. Floor laid tile is used to prevent water from hitting the building in case of a water disaster. The Y-shaped roof, is a roof with drain, so rainwater flows down into the garden through the roof. Next is water tank. The left one is Metropolitan Area Outer Underground Exchange Channel in Saitama. This is 6.3 kilometers long tunnel. It's one of the biggest water tank in the world. When the heavy rain happens, it prevents the flood with store water and drainage into the Edo River. Right one is the water tank is in underground civil station. It's now constructing.
So for water problems such as drought, we all know that the first solution is actually to import the water. That's what Singapore did the moment we got independence. And that water shouldn't be always reliant on importation. That's what the government wants. So we move on to the local water catchment area, where we created almost around 17 reservoirs. And our most excited reservoir would be the one in Marina Bay, where we actually dam up the sea and created an entirely fresh water separating from the seawater, as you can see over there. And the last one is actually slightly more expensive. It is more relatable to developed countries or countries that are in desire need, and they decided to actually invest in something due to this kind of issue. First is actually to reclaim sewage water, which is new water. When we created this, all the Singaporeans were actually very skeptical because we were thinking, why would I drink coffee from my toilet bowl? Yeah, so this is actually a movement done by Singapore, and it was too clean that they have to throw the water back to the reservoir to make it drinkable. And then second one, the last one is actually desalination, which is the most expensive, but it is also needed in a way in such time where the other three tap is actually being compromised. So in essence, other than that, the Singapore government also push on education. No matter what, we should not be complacent. We should always have some thought about water saving action, because at the end of the day, population will only rise, and we all know that fresh water will only be depleting over time. And that our water supplier, which is Malaysia, Johor, eventually the one that provided water for us, we provided them back during drought because they didn't have such plans, and then they experienced drought and they bought water from us instead at the end of the day during the drought season.
The resident solution. So this is in Cambodia, as you know that the flood is a serious problem happening in Cambodia. So the solution that we have been working nowadays, we have three types of solution. So type 1 is the structural measurement. So they use the structural measurement to help against the flood. Such as in this picture, this is a picture of a leaf. So this can protect when there is a flood. And they also use the structural measurements to help to reduce the magnitude of the flood by installing the flood reduction, such as dam. You can see it when this dam can reduce the magnitude of the flood when it comes. And the second solution that we're working on is non-structural measurement. So the people, they try to raise up the level of the house at the area that is flooded. This is even higher depending on the level of the flood. So when the flood comes, it's not affected. And the last solution is the management. Like they try to give the information earlier, avoid broadcasting, so that people in that flooded area, they can know and get prepared.
Okay, next, I want to introduce about education garbage. Okay, first kind of garbage, first liquid waste, solid garbage, organic waste, recyclable hazardous waste, and kind of garbage can recycle and non-recycle. Like recycle can like bottle or plastic, and non-recycle like the tin of camera or like spoon or t-shirt. Okay. Okay, I will talk about garbage education in. Okay, 141 district to town only 43 control and few inside the main capital was general for Vientiane capital city in 237.15 kilo per year. Look it was the problem in Laos. There are a lot of garbage in waste. It was made waste that and this area are fault because the rainwater can't flow from the rain. And this is the solution of Laos. The main priority of Vientiane city office for management and service regarding solid waste and reuse only reuse, reduce and recycle. Okay, this is activity for my faculty. Laos every day on Saturday, students and workers will take the garbage liquid to bin around village or near the road. Remove garbage out of drain. Okay.
Okay, so in conclusion, all this knowledge that each and every country experience in terms of their water crisis, it will be shared within this committee, which is ASEAN Slum Disaster Committee. The reason is because every time when this kind of disaster happens, the one that is at the most vulnerable is actually the slums, like the one we visited at Tuan Toi. And even though everyone is affected, the slums are the one that actually almost forgotten. And the issue arises when, especially in a regional problem like ASEAN, we always assume that our country will not have tsunami or our country will not have flood or drought, this and that. But when it happened in 2004 tsunami in India Ocean, we noticed that this kind of thing cannot be complacent and there need to be some preparation for actually a preventive measure. Even if we don't have a tsunami, there might be a potential for everything. So we have two approaches. One is actually to fund by foundation and another one is actually to fund by bonds. By foundation is actually when the disaster already happened, the countries that are in the committee can actually send the foundation to the country that are affected by the disaster in a more efficient manner so that money comes in quickly. And if there's no disaster time, during easy time, there will be bonds. And the bonds is actually a preventive disaster project. And this is a borrowing for low interest and that countries that are not able to afford a project can actually borrow to prevent such measure for the future time. So this
is a summary of the case studies. In order to apply these case studies into the slums, we analyze the floods in each country. We can find 7 common problems. Some in Bangkok are also common were involved. As a solution, we propose 4 methods: how to collect the drinking water, how to be clean, how to protect the city, how to prepare for disaster. This is just an illustration from our analysis. In addition to development of large infrastructure, these small actions will create a sustainable, inclusive, and resilient society. It's our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. This was very interesting, and I kind of pick up 3 keywords myself from your presentation. One is tsunami, the other is flooding in urban areas, and then the third one is the waste issue, right? So try to link these 3 keywords. Probably I could do only 2: urban flood and then the garbage. Probably you thought about this issue because you observed that many of drainage in the cities are kind of blocked by the waste garbages disposed. So probably, yeah, try to link these 2. That's very true. The decreased capacity of the drainages in cities are one of the major issues for the urban flood. Others would be like the geological location of the cities. Maybe it's already very, like a low elevation of sea level. It's very flat, so the water doesn't naturally drain. But the first thing, tsunami, in my understanding, is a very different type of flooding compared to urban flood, but because it's more because of the natural disasters, whereas urban flood is, of course, because of the heavy rainfall, and then at the same time because of the, capacity in the drainage. So, if you have any, answer to my question, how do you limit the tsunami to other two keywords, or otherwise it can be just comment to you guys.
So the idea is about, because our topic is under the approach of resilience, inclusive, and also safe. The link currently is water-related disaster, but the idea is that it is in terms of every type of disaster that is related to water, because of the water problem and issues that are usually the one that is most unmanaged in cities around ASEAN especially. So with having that 4 key factors of different water type, our approach is that the committee that is in ASEAN to take care of water under slum water disaster management, they will exchange all this information, because we need to know every country's expertise in their different knowledge or case studies that they have, and they will redistribute to countries that don't have or may have in future but don't know yet. So in a way, it's exchange of study and exchange of knowledge, and also exchange of infrastructure. So even though we may not have tsunami, we have only flood, we will never know if someday there are some unforeseen circumstances if science carry on with their research. So it's just a possibility study. Thank you.
Thank you for your beautiful presentation about this slum saving program. But the the informal settlement residents doesn't pay tax, so it's not the government issue. So what's your image of who is the driving force of this huge amount of investment in infrastructure under the slum area? Slum area is huge in 8 ASEAN countries. So NPO or which level of the governance will take place this one?
I think in terms of governance, the one that will take place within each country will most likely be the Ministry of Development itself, because of the idea of we did take a look into that. They do not contribute in terms of money, and therefore they definitely cannot afford any of this infrastructure. But by having this preventive measure, it actually also control in terms of how the slum actually contributes to the city in a micro manner, in terms of their sustainability, their business that they actually do run in the city. So they may not contribute in tax, but they contribute in terms of their microeconomy. So by having this preventive measure to protect them, we are also protecting the city's land in the event that let's say 2,000 slums in Bangkok. If Bangkok were to remove 500, at the end of the day there will still be 2,000, because they're going to move to other parts of Bangkok to fill up the spaces. So it is kind of like the benefit of this prevention for the slums is working for also reducing other future problems where land management will be easier. And also people and work management in a way, because they may not contribute, but they are also there because they are part of that community, and the community needs them, they need the community, because the slum probably works nearby to somewhere that is a factory over there. So in a way, I would say we are protecting something that the government might not be able to afford currently, which is public housing. Because at least they are currently housing themselves now, and that over time maybe the future infrastructure after this preventive measure might be public housing and there will be no more slums, depending on case-to-case basis.
Thank you for your presentation. And I was wondering that if you guys are looking into water catchment area, because in relation to a flood, water catchment is very important as well. When you look at city like Ho Chi Minh or Bangkok, especially like Bangkok, you can look at, when you look at Mahanakhon or skyscraper, you can see a large plot of area which is covered in green in middle of city center. This is preserved in order to have a large catchment area in order to prevent the water to go into the city, although we still have a problem. And Ho Chi Minh as well, there's a large plot of area as well. So it's also good to think about how you can expand this kind of catchment area. It also provides green as well as help to prevent this water issue. And just a comment to add on. Some more.
The comments from Adam Dolan is very important because in order to deal with those flooding, you can make a major improvement for those drainage system, or you can prepare the large underground water tank to receive that. That's already lots of options, but it costs a lot of money. Major infrastructure, the project, let's say, great infrastructure. But nowadays, there's ways to use those catchment area or kind of the location which is covered by green for daily use. But just in case of heavy rain, works to kind of mitigate the load. So and then instead of having a large central system, you can locate like a relatively smaller attempts in multiple locations, and that can be network. That can reduce the load for the flooding. You can control the water. If you can control the peak, you can cut the peak out of the drainage road, and you can manage the water system. So I think it's a kind of strategy. You just work on the central system to control everything, or you just place the multiple attempts, and that can be done by green infrastructure. And I think it's another way of consideration.
Thank you. In relation to this, sorry, I'm kind of moderating, but it's a good guys have comments. For example, when you your argument went to water supply, and water supply is also if it's centralized, sometimes like a huge disaster, it stops. So it's a more investment, but cheap to manage because it's distributed and maintained by the state. So you pay little tax, but sometimes that is the well in your property or community has a well. It's less investment, but it's more to maintain, but it also works as an alternative system when it has a disaster because it's just in your beach. So there's not like a choice of between this or that, then maybe you could choose both, either not choose one or the other. But this distributed dispersed infrastructure may be also important to invest.
Thank you. Just one more thing that I just remembered to add on. When there was a huge tsunami happened in north part of Japan, there are some villages that managed to escape from tsunami because tsunami is something periodical that happens in that area. It's like every 800 or 1,000 years, there's a huge tsunami. So some village has a legend that when a tsunami happens, everyone should escape. Don't forget about baby or old people. And then some village actually follow that. And then so those village managed to escape from the tsunami, although they have to sacrifice for the elderly or younger generations. But for that case, it was actually the right choice because many people who died because they tried to save their parents or their babies, and they couldn't save anyone, neither themselves. Sometimes, without having a huge concrete wall or like large infrastructure, the education or some sort of a common sense network can also help to save their lives from this sort of disaster. So there's something I thought would be interesting to consider, the educational infrastructure.
more.
In a way, based on our understanding, you mentioned that sometimes it's not about to build something, but to remove something, right? like removing a wall for easy escape or something like that.
Well, I mean, building a wall, it's cost a lot, and also destroying the scenery as well. So that without having such a large infrastructure, there's other alternative way, which is the education system to share some sort of common understanding. So or maybe a very cheap infrastructure. This could be a concrete tower, example. So rather than building a 30-meter wall around the city, like Attack of Titan, which you don't want to have, instead of building such a huge wall, there's an alternative. And especially for the countries who cannot afford all those infrastructure, there should be always an alternative way to kind of maintain the society in a sustainable way. That's what I want to say.
Okay. Understand. Thank you so much for sharing.
Actually, recently, our colleagues are making an evacuation route map to educate young kids and everybody. So we call it a nigechizu. So it's a kind of simulation when disaster comes, how to evacuate, how to save, or how to aggregate there. So that kind of prevention, disaster prevention training is very important, maybe in Asia countries.
Kosaku Dairoku from Malaysia University. I just want to mention about the tsunami disaster. That's a huge scale disaster. Human being cannot really control. That's the thing. So that's one of the way to minimize the damage and the sacrifice of human lives is to just like Professor Kobayashi mentioned, we have to accept that Japan could be affected that tsunami. So that beforehand, we have to prepare ourselves. When actually tsunami hit any area, the first things to do, the priority of things that you have to decide on that. And then secondly, that's an emergency measures. But another one is, in the northern part of Japan facing the Pacific Ocean, have experienced so many tsunamis in the history, so that all the people actually know what to do when tsunami hit the area. But the last recent tsunami was about their emerging. That was too large. And that's why they couldn't respond to as efficiently as they could. But so another way to mitigate that damage from the tsunami is to this is kind of another problem issues. Move all those communities to other areas, the higher in the hills or things like that. But actually, that's what the Japanese local governments has been doing. But in some community, it's successful. Everybody agrees to move. But other people, they're actually making their lives by fishing. They don't want to leave from the seashore. So that some in the houses were left close to the seashore. Others, moved to higher level of land. So in this case, the existing community actually collapsed. Some people leave, some people remain, and then they will leave that personal relationship. That causes a kind of psychological problem. So we have to think about that. That's right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Group A. We move to now presentation by Group B.